Hi, this is John Harter. Happy New Year and welcome to episode 18 of Left Turn at Albuquerque. Today we'll go back to the Looney Tunes Superstars line and deal with the third release, which was kind of a transitional one.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I should have turned left at Albuquerque.
Okay, let's see if we can keep this going. If you like what you're seeing, please remember to hit the subscribe button down below. Now, before we get to the DVD rundown, a couple of updates from last time. Viewer Jimmy G96 pointed out there are 7 bugs yet to be officially released on digital home video. I left out Bugs Bunny Nips to Nips, which we've spoken about previously, so thanks to them for catching that. That one's definitely not coming out until a World War II collection. And our buddy Jamie C. and the Hoffman boards once again helped me out. In The Impatient Patient, the name Chloe appeared for what looks like to be a very specific reason. Back in the late 20s, there was a song named Chloe that was subtitled Song of the Swamp. Not to be confused with Song of the South, that's a whole nother story. So where is Daffy delivering his telegram addressed to Chloe? The Swamp. The song's most famous rendition came out a few years after the tune, done by the inimitable Spike Jones in 1945. I tell you, our viewers come through. Thanks, Jimmy and Jamie. To be honest, back when this came out, I didn't expect to be buying any more of these. After the missteps that greeted the beginning of the Looney Tunes Superstars DVD line, there was little evidence Warner's would be doing anything to address the concerns of fans who brought up the whole widescreen matted issue. They put out an explanation on why they did it, but there was nothing more after that that I found after being alerted to the issue. Once again, hat tip to Judge Harold. So when the next 2 releases came out on November 30th, 2010, I decided to take a pass. A couple months later, just for the heck of it, I Googled Looney Tune widescreen, and I ended up being directed to an Amazon review of Foghorn Leghorn, Barnyard, Bigmouth. And lo and behold, to my great surprise, the first thing the reviewer noted was viewers were given a choice whether to watch them in standard or widescreen. This was a pretty big concession on the company's part that something was done incorrectly the first time around. According to Jerry Beck, the new line was aimed at the mainstream customer, not the collector like the Golden Collection sets were. The fact that Warner Brothers went and put 2 different versions of the same cartoon on the disc at least said to me they were still looking to hold on to those customers. Plus, despite the shift in focus, it still had the adult collector disclaimer on the back and before the main menu. Now, my question was, why did I have to find out about it on Google like 2 months after it was released? If they had put out some kind of explanation that this was the way they were going to be doing it, I must have missed it. I was trying to keep up on it before it came out in the hopes that they would address it, and I didn't end up seeing anything. Shouldn't Warner's have wanted to let the info out a little better than this, considering they went through the whole change of formatting? Now, as we've seen over the ensuing years, they've gotten much better about this. Like the other 2 Superstars discs, we'll take a look at the original and widescreen and see what gets cut off. All of these shorts were released in 1954 or later, so there is a widescreen option for each. One problem is you can't easily switch between the 2 formats. I made a quick video of what I had to go through to make the changes, so just watch this. Okay, now watch what I have to go through to do this. This is on a Samsung Blu-ray. The Panasonic was a little different, but it was the same principle. So, okay, I'll select the full screen. We'll do that. We get to the menu. So I'll just pick episodes, and we'll just pick all Fowled Up. And we'll let it start. Okay, now watch. So I gotta go to the Tools menu, bring it back up, and so change the title. That will then send it back here, and now you have to wait the 45 seconds again and read all about how, some of these were not very nice. You get the disclaimer. It really should be a whole lot easier, but it's not. So thank God they got rid of this whole widescreen thing. Also, the menu is a little deceptive. It makes it look like you get more picture in widescreen than on the standard one. Well, let's make that quite a bit deceptive. All the Foghorns were directed by Bob McKimson and fluctuated back and forth between showing up in syndication and on Saturday mornings. I'll point out the network ones. As for the other 6, 4 were by McKimson, the last 2 were by Fritz Freeling. Now, why couldn't they just have made an all McKimson disc? I don't know. Now, just a quick recap about Foghorn Leghorn. He debuted in Walkie Talkie Hockey from 1946, which we've done. He was based off a character on the Fred Allen radio show. I know I thought I hadn't seen many Jerry Colonna appearances, but Allen is even more obscure to people today. Unlike his famous feuding partner, Jack Benny, he never made the jump to TV in any major way since he passed away in 1956 and had a few movie roles, most notably in O. Henry's Full House and It's in the Bag. One of the characters on his show was a loudmouth senator from the South, Beauregard Claghorn, played by Kenny Delmar. If you heard one of the sketches, you'd immediately recognize the influence on the animated rooster, the attitude, the catchphrases. It's all there. It got to the point where it looked like there might have been a lawsuit involved. But pop culture history moved forward, and the imitator has had far more of an impact than the original. So now we're up to speed on him. On to the DVD. First is All Fowled Up, released on February 19th, 1955, about a decade and a half before my sister. Written by Sid Marcus and Robert's brother Charles, who is an animator in his unit. This is another Foghorn, Henry Hawk, Barnyard dog cartoon, each playing one against the other. The most memorable bit has Foghorn rig up a pipe contraption to the doghouse to send some dynamite over, only to have the dog send a match back, leading to this famous comment.
Fortunately, I keep my feathers numbered for just such an emergency.
In widescreen, numerous head tops get cut off due to the matting. There's one scene where Foghorn is jacked up and he goes past the mat. Next is Fox Terror, which came out on May 11, 1957, written by Maltese, a rare one for him with Foghorn. There's a fox on the loose, and one panicky little rooster keeps pulling the fox alarm, but the dog keeps showing up late. The fox then gets Foghorn to run interference for him. Now, this cartoon was actually the last of the Blue Ribbon reissue titles, and it turns out that one of the things they did was they changed the Looney Tune rings at the beginning. There are people who really keep track of this. I'm not one of them, but I'm glad there are people who do. And supposedly they actually found the original rings on this, but after the cartoon was restored, so they never went back and fixed it. I mean, just pop the thing in the Final Cut and fix it already. Jeez. This is the most blatant matting example with the word fox cut right in half. Hey. A Broken Leghorn came out on September 26, 1959, written by Warren Foster. Now, this one is the only repeater on the set. It is now restored as opposed to its previous appearance on Golden Collection Volume 1 in unrestored form. Foghorn helps Miss Prissy lay an egg, which turns out to be a baby rooster, one the elder rooster becomes horribly jealous of. So in the guise of teaching him the ropes, he tries to get rid of the little one, but the traps always backfire. Seems Foghorn was always able to beat the dog, but never the little ones. A quickie, this one barely breaks 6 minutes. The main matting problem here is the feet and occasional head getting cut off, but no jokes are lost. I'm pretty sure this one was on the network. Crockett Doodle Doo was released on June 25, 1960, written by Ted Pierce. Foghorn's got his coonskin cap on and tries to get little Egghead interested in outdoorsy type stuff. Lots of fun gags in this one when the bookworm knows way more about the woods than his overly verbose elder. This is the last time the brainy little one showed up in the Golden Age. Now, interestingly, 2 of his shorts have scenes related to Native Americans, therefore we don't see them too much anymore, or they get cut out. Another particularly bad mat job when it comes to headroom. Foggy's head disappears constantly throughout the short, and the cloud for the rain gag is barely there. Weasel While You Work came out on September 6, 1958, written by Maltese and Pierce. I don't think they'd worked together for quite a while. Ted was uncredited. It's winter, so it's time for all the snow and ice related gags for Foghorn and the dog to do to each other while trying to keep the weasel under control. The music for this one stands out since it's one of the John C. Lee 6 with music from Capitol's Haiku library. This one coincidentally reminds me of the Huckleberry Hound cartoon where he battles Pierre during a downhill skiing race. Matting isn't too bad here apart from the occasional top of head cutoff. Weasel Stop was released on February 11th, 1956, written by Pierce. Foghorn Bugs the Arthur Honeycutt-like dog. There's another great reference. Did you know he played the original Uncle Jesse in the movies? Did you even know there was a movie first?
I did the music, and I'll tell you the story. I'm Waylon Jennings.
Anyway, his job is protecting the chickens from the weasel, but Foggy cries weasel one too many times when the real one comes. The numbered feathered gags makes the return here. For a remastered tune, the sound on this was pretty muddy like a bad local station copy.
Like my grandma used to tell me, you can't be sure what's in the pickle barrel till you get the lid off of it.
Apart from the usual every now and then head cutting off, the mat almost ruins the paper airplane gag. Little Boy Boo came out on June 5th, 1954, again written by Pierce. Foghorn decides to wed Miss Prissy, not voiced by B. Bennett Derritt, this time out but by Gladys Holland, but must get along with her son Egghead first. Now, why didn't they put this tune before the other one? This is his debut and the start of their antagonistic relationship. And he only made 3 appearances. Why didn't we get all 3? We'll talk about the third in a little bit. It also has one of my favorite Foghorn Leghorn gags.
No, I better not look. I just might be in there.
Of all the older tune, the matting does the least damage to this one. A few heads, that's all. Banty Raids was released on June 25th, 1963, written by McKimson and Nick Benyon. A hipster rooster pretends to be a baby to get by Foghorn and get to the chicks. Very nice perspective tracking shot during the credits, and for a later one, it's not too bad for trying to be hip. In fact, this was the last tune starring Foghorn to be released in the theaters. So why isn't this the last Foghorn on the disc? Accordingly, the matting is pretty much innocuous on this one. It almost looks like it was made for widescreen the way the characters are situated within the frame. The last Foghorn on the disc is Strangled Eggs, which came out on March 18, 1961, written once again by Pierce. And this also has a tracking shot. A semi-remake of Little Boy Boo with Foghorn wanting to marry Miss Prissy, done by Julie Bennett, to get a warm place for the winter, but when someone leaves Henry Hawk on her porch, she insists he raise him like a chicken. Only Henry isn't too agreeable to the concept. Matting isn't too bad except for a pretty egregious cutting Miss Prissy's head in half. These last two are mainly on the networks. On to the other characters, though this one has a bridge back to the Foghorn shorts. Gopher Broke was released on November 15, 1958. Pierce writing again. Our friends the Goofy Gophers have their vegetables harvested away from them, so they try to drive Barnyard Dog nuts to get to them. Only they succeed in sending the pig to a psychiatrist. Another John C. Lee back catalog music score here, and actually works to its advantage since it's supposed to be a little unsettling. Matting is basically inconsequential here. This was a syndicated staple from the time I was small. A Mutt and a Rutt came out on May 23, 1959, written by guess who? Yep, Ted Pierce. McKimson and Pierce are the Freeling and Foster of this disc. Now, this one actually had nothing to do with farming. Elmer's dog gets the thought implanted in his head from a TV show that his master may plug him as they go out hunting, so once loyal Rover tries to do everything to prevent it, yet ends up saving his master over and over again. Matting looks like what it was, chopping off the image at the top and the bottom regardless of action. Some shots just look odd because of it. Now, this wasn't on much, but it was on the network when it was. Mouse Plays Kitten was released a few months earlier than the last one, January 24th, 1959, written by you-know-who. An abandoned kitten ends up at the door of farmhouse mice who adopt him as their own. then bring him up to the regular house for a good home. A year later, on his birthday, they decide to visit, but the housewife wants those mice out. Another in the long list of Warner's baby out-of-place cartoons. Manning is mostly unobtrusive. This one wasn't on too much. I think it was mostly in syndication. She's It, the Cat, came out on May 4th, 1957. You know who wrote it. The Honey Mousers are back. New owners move into their house and they have a cat, so Ralph and Morton have to find a way to get rid of him to get Alice's birthday cake. This is one of those odd ones that since Dawes Butler and June Foray did the main voices and Mel Blanc, who did one line, had his exclusivity deal, no voices were credited. Manning was like in Mutt, some scenes just looked bad, but the final gag was almost ruined because of it. Pretty sure this was a syndicated one. Now, the last two are the Frizz Freelings. Two Crows from Tacos was released on November 24th, 1956. Take a guess who wrote this one. Two lazy Mexican crows, likely the reason for the disclaimers, chase after a grasshopper but then figure it's too much work and go back to hanging out in a tree. Some nice animation where the two act like jets going after the grasshopper. We've seen this basic plot before. It's pretty much a reworking of Hop, Skip, and a Chump. You know Frizz. Again, no vocal credit because Mel didn't do anything on this cartoon. The voices were done by Don Diamond, who was Crazy Cat on F Troop, and Tom Holland. Not that Tom Holland. Mutt-style Manning again, just blatant cutting tops off. I had seen this one before, either in syndication or on Nickelodeon. Might have been on Saturday mornings, though I think that was less likely. The Crows ended up having a Babbitt and Costello-like evolution into cats for the Speedy Gonzales short Mexicali Schmoes, which we did in an earlier episode, then became mice and Cannery Whoa, then went back to their original incarnations for Crow's Feet, which came out on April 21st, 1962. It was co-directed by Hawley Pratt and written by John Dunn. The Crows are back, and this time they find a field of corn to eat. The Scarecrow looks like Elmer Fudd, so they blow it off, only to be chased after by the real Elmer, who remains silent. Guess Hal Smith wasn't available. As opposed to the last one, I'd never seen this one before, though I think it has been on either Cartoon Network or maybe even MeTV not that long ago. Now, it's well known Frizz thought Elmer was a pushover, so we turned him into a real tough SOB in this one. I mean, relatively anyway. Manning isn't too bad. Now, they should have done the Foghorn Leghorn cartoons in chronological order since the concepts were repeated a bit. That way, it would give the jokes like some kind of context. And if they were going to do the whole farmyard concept, they really should have stuck with it. There were still issues with the new series that's still to be dealt with. The Bugs and Daffy discs, despite their issues, were 100% new to DVD. As mentioned, this disc for some reason repeats a Broken Leghorn, which was released on the first box set. Were there no other unreleased farm-related shorts they could use? We know there were at least 4 or 5 more that they could have put on that hadn't been released yet. They made a semi-big deal that it was being remastered, but as we've seen over the years in music and movies, that can be a very vague term. Once we got to the HD Blu-ray era, it did get more pronounced. But back then, I'd have gladly taken another Foghorn or farm-related cartoon over a remastered Broken Leghorn. Now, even worse, its companion release, Feline Frenzy, concentrating on Tweety and Sylvester, consisted of all previously released cartoons. The reason this was done was to help offset the cost of restoration on the other cartoons by releasing a whole set of previously released cartoons at the same time as a new one. As it turns out, they only did this one other time in the Superstars line with the overseas-only release of Wascally Wabbit. The Spotlight releases were more in line with this, taking whole discs from the Goldens and repackaging them, much like the later Golden Carrot collection. So while Warner's got my kudos and my dollars for doing the right thing in regards to the formatting issue, there were other creative decisions that needed to be worked out. The whole Tweety and Sylvester disc being a double dip was totally uncalled for, but as mentioned, they had their fiscal reasons for it. We'll take a look at this specific disc when we do the other Sylvester release, one that went in almost totally the other direction. As we know, with the benefit of hindsight with the previous 2 discs, Warner's did not go back and redo them to put the full screen option on, though it Would have been a little more difficult since all the shorts did not have the widescreen option, which may be why certain Foghorn shorts weren't collected here. The idealist in me hoped they would work out some kind of exchange program for those customers who liked the option. They'd addressed previous mistakes before, but maybe they didn't really view this as a mistake per se. As we've seen over the years with the latest Collector's Choice volume, they have done a pretty good job at fixing the issue with the first two sets. I mean, as we know, Bugs Bunny is down to just one that needs to be released correctly. Apes of Wrath, as we've often discussed. There was a third wave of Superstars titles that would come out in 2011, one of which was a Roadrunner disc, which we will do later on. But rather a blanket buy no matter what, like with the box sets. Each of these titles got a very careful consideration before I spent the $12 on it. I'll say again what I said after the review of the first two Superstars discs. They really should have never ended the Golden Collections period, but again, the financial issues were real, and they did put a dent in whatever George and Jerry had planned along the way. Remember, the original plans for the two Superstars discs were also changed. Now, the original plans for this round of releases may have been different as well. If you take a look on Amazon Prime or iTunes Video, there's a collection titled Looney Tunes Superstars Elmer Fudd with a thumbnail that looks like it could have been made for a Superstars DVD cover. Was this one planned to come out possibly with the Foghorn Leghorn set and then plans changed? I only wonder because of the timing, because there are two Elmers on the Foghorn set and two on a later Superstars disc. Was this one cannibalized to some extent? I just don't know. So let's take a look at the cartoons included on the streaming sites, see what was released and what was still left to be done. I won't do a short by short rundown of it because we've done some of them and we'll be doing some of them in the future. Hopefully even the ones that haven't come out we'll be doing at some point. This is kind of a Quincy-like forensic investigation of a DVD set that never was. For the Elmer Fudd Superstars collection lineup, they first have Hair Conditioned, which was on Golden Collection Volume 6. Next is Ant Pasted, which would appear on the later Superstars disc for a different character. Then Crow's Feet from this set. Next is Doggone People, which would also be on the later set. This is followed by Each Dawn I Crow, which was on the Each Dawn I Die DVD as an extra. Goodnight Elmer follows. This has yet to be released on disc, but is on Max and has been there almost the whole time. Mutt and the Rutt is covered on this set. Now the next two have not been released on disc. Nutty News is the only black and white tune in the bunch and features Elmer as narrator, foreshadowing his role in the Looney Tunes show. It's never been on Max, but was on Ride, and it's also been on MeTV. I first saw it there probably in October 2023. And that exact same episode just reran the day after Christmas. What's My Lion has only appeared on these streamers, including the Boomerang app, RIP. It really needs a restoration badly. I bought it myself and I watched it. It was like, ugh. Looked like it was on like Channel 17 or something like that. Oof. Last is Back Alley Opera, which was on Golden Collection Volume 2 and later Platinum Collection Volume 2. So if they wanted 15 cartoons for this set featuring Elmer, they could have done it. Starting in the early days, they could have included Confederate Honey and the Hardship of Miles Standish, both from 1940. Confederate Honey was on the Virginia City DVD, see Errol Flynn, but in edited form. Both of these feature insensitive material which may have hurt their chances for an appearance. Pest for Guests features the Goofy Gophers and still needs a home video appearance. It is on Boomerang. Yankee Doodle was on Golden Collection Volume 6, but could have been used in a pinch, just remaster it. The final one we've mentioned a few times, Don't Ax Me with Daffy Duck, it still needs a home to this day. Now, if they wanted to leave off the three previously released tunes, Hair Condition, Yankee Doodle, and Back Alley Opera, there are three semi-related tunes they could have used. Dangerous Dan McFoo features Arthur Q. Bryant using his Elmer voice the year before his debut. This was just on Collector's Choice Volume 4, which we did last month. Of Fox and Hound is a hunting tune remade as Foxy by Proxy, And the crackpot quail was used as a bonus on the later Tex Avery MGM collection. Then if this set had existed as an actual DVD, here's what they could have used to replace the Elmers with on the Foghorn disc. First is the Squawking Hawk, the very first Henry Hawk cartoon, which is another debut that has yet to hit home video. Then they could have chosen any of the Foghorn Leghorns from the Collector's Choice series or Lovelorn Leghorn, the first Foghorn with Miss Prissy. But these were before the widescreen era, so that may have factored in the decision. So any of the post-1954 tunes we'll talk about in a minute could have made the cut. So what's left for Foghorn Leghorn? Not too many, but a few are still not available in digital home video. Crockett Doodle Doo from 1952. The Egg-Sided Rooster from 1953 has an issue, as we can see, so this might take a while. Feather Dusted from 1955 is on one of the Saturday morning collections, but not a Looney Tunes specific set, so that counts for our purposes. This one also has an issue that MeTV has shown in full, but Boomerang has cut out. The similar sounding Feather Bluster from 1958 was also not available. The Dixie Friar from 1960 is still needed on home video. And the Slick Chick and Mother Was a Rooster, both from 1962, are the last of the Golden Agers. There are two later ones, Pulitzer Prize from 1997 with Frank Gorshin doing Foghorn, and Cock-a-Doodle Duel from 2004, but we'll talk about those elsewhere. So that's 7 out of 28 left, plus we can toss in Squawk and Hawk into that pile as well. So what's left for Elmer? Turns out he had one more, 8 of them left to be released, at least for our purposes. First is Confederate Honey, The Hardship of Miles Standish, Good Night Elmer, Nutty News, Each Dawn I Crow, Pest for Guests, Don't Ax Me, as we know from Daffy, and What's My Line? Now, if they'd ever think about reissuing this title on Blu-ray, none of these are currently out in HD, so it could almost work. You could even leave a Broken Leghorn on since it hasn't had a Blu-ray release. I don't think that's in their current plans, but they could save themselves some time and see if something like this is feasible instead of picking them apart for Collector's Choice volumes, which has happened in the past with some of the other discs. But if I had to come up with the ultimate way of doing this on Blu-ray, we go into our alternate reality and come up with this. Looney Tunes Super Stars, Barnyard Bigmouth, the complete Foghorn Leghorn 2-disc set. Since he was on 28 cartoons as a star and 1 cameo, that's right about the limit of what one disc could be expected to hold. So here you go. Let's do a quick rundown here, as we can see. Now for disc 2, you could have a bonus disc that would first contain the other appearances of his main co-stars. First, Henry Hawk finally gives Squawk and Hawk a home, followed by the Daffy co-star You Were Never Duckier. Miss Prissy's debut in An Egg Scramble could be next. Finally, we could have Barnyard Dogs for other appearances. One Meat Brawl, Daffy Duck Hunt, Gopher Broke, and our good old buddy Don't Ax Me. Then we could do the few other times Foggy was in later shorts. The Yoke's on You, which is part of the Daffy Duck Easter special. His cameo in Superior Duck to be comprehensive. Then Pulitzer Prize, so you get 2 Frank Gorshins. Then finally Cock-a-Doodle Duel from the Back in Action era. Then I thought we could actually pad out the disc with 2 episodes from the Looney Tunes show, The Foghorn Leghorn Story and A Christmas Carol. It's nice to dream. We'll have to see what they have up their sleeves as far as the previously released tunes go. I mean, those upgrades have to go somewhere. Now, just a couple of quick things before we go. Anthony from the Animation Talk channel dropped by our last video bemoaning the fact that Warner's were putting out so much almost all at once. You know, yeah, we go for months without things and all of a sudden we get inundated. You know, the same kind of thing happens in music collecting, you know, where you get like 2 box sets and a deluxe reissue on the same day, or like in comics, you get a big omnibus and then you want a Marvel Masterworks. You know, we're just lucky the big one of that set is Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. I actually just saw that DVD at the Princeton Record Exchange. They were selling it for $50. I'm like, I'll hold off. Now, Anthony's going to be doing some more expansive things on his channel in the new year, as well as continuing his new and updated looks at the Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies. So do take a look over there. I mean, there's plenty of room for all of us to do whatever we want with this. That's the great thing about it. Now, my buddy Jason, who handles the Swords of Robert E. Howard board and has his own Pulp Crazy channel, have a look at that if you'd like to get into Howard, Lovecraft, and any of those authors. He wanted to know if I was going to be handling the Paramount Supermans, which Warner's did put out on Blu-ray, and it has some issues. They did some really heavy digital noise reduction on it. So they would like, I'd hope that they fix that. Now, I do have it kind of in mind to do in the long term. Let me kind of put on my plan on how we're looking to do things going forward. So for next month, we're going to be doing the Superstars disc of a certain character who is celebrating his 80th birthday. The first two this year that have 80. Then after that, we're going to be doing a big celebration for somebody who's celebrating his 90th birthday in March. We may be doing 3 episodes on that, including one really big one for a really big set. Then after that, it's the next character who has an 80th birthday, and we'll be dealing with a good collection and the bad collection we just talked about. Then maybe after that, we'll go ahead and deal with the one that has a lot of post-1964 cartoons on it. And some of it may surprise you on my conclusions about some of the cartoons on it. Maybe a little stunned how much I like them. Then hopefully by the summer, we'll take care of the last big sets of collections, and we'll try to knock them out all in one episode each. And, we'll give that a try. Then maybe starting in September, provided that we're not inundated with more Looney Tunes releases, we may start to head over into Tom and Jerry, because my son got this for his Christmas. This was a favorite of his when he was growing up, and he lost one of the discs, so Santa brought him an upgrade. Plus, they have the new disc coming out, so we'll look for that towards next year. So at some point after that, maybe look at Popeye and maybe do Superman as an offshoot of those. Now, if they load up with more Looney Tunes collections of various categories, this will all get reshuffled and we'll, take up the whole year. There's lots to do, so we're going to try to do this methodically so you can follow along, figure out what to buy, what not. Top Cat was my point of personal privilege. It just happened to work out perfectly with the new release. So that's what's in store. Thanks always for watching and looking forward to going over the new stuff. One more thing. Our loyal viewer, Toon Disney, has now changed his handle to the Toon Talker Master. In case you were looking and didn't see him in the comments below, he's just changed his name. Didn't delete them. They're all still there. So thanks again for keeping tuned in. I can't believe I just did that. Next time, in time for Valentine's Day, we'll do The Best of the Best, featuring the entire collection of Warner's favorite romantic skunk, Pepe Le Pew. I'm John Hartford. Thanks for watching.